Welcome to Dodgers Dogs. As part of the Dodgers Daily Network, Austin Brubaker joins. Casey Porter here, so glad you decided to tune in. It's Friday night in the Big Town, and we are excited to talk Dodgers baseball. Austin, what's brewing, man?
Hey, how's it going, Case? I'm excited to be here. I think it's going to be a last live show, at least with the two of us before Christmas. So it's going to be a fun show that we're going to have. I've no idea exactly where the show is going to go, but hey, that's okay. We're going to go with it. The crowd absolutely love you guys tuning in to hear, maybe watching a little bit of college football along with us as well. I know Notre Dame and Indiana are going on a little bit right now, so a little bit of multitasking, I'm sure, is what we'll be doing tonight. But Dodgers baseball is always something worth talking about, no matter what it is. It could be the middle of a snowstorm, which we just got a little bit more snow last night here in the great state of Michigan. It is always a great time to talk Dodgers baseball and how to win another World Series, because I want what happened in 2024 to happen again in 2025. That's my Christmas wish.
So you've got we're going to do a couple blind comparisons, right? Because a lot of times there's what we call name bias. Like, hey, I've heard of that guy. That guy sounds good. And, maybe that guy, he sounds good because he has been good, but has he been good like as recently as you would like for them to be? Do they have the right trends? That kind of thing. So kind of like you do whenever like the NCAA basketball tournament is coming up and you give blind resumes for teams. I know you have a blind resume for a couple of guys, right? You want to take us through that? And just tell me when you want me to throw that up there.
We'll get to that in a little bit. I'll find a good time to be able to do the ebbs and flow. But I'm curious with you guys, what are your guys' thoughts? What are your guys' wishes for the Dodgers? What's your Christmas wish for the Dodgers? Is it re-sign Teoscar Hernandez? What exactly are you wanting to do to make this team even much better than what it actually is? I'm sure we'll have a lot of discussion about that. I do have, as Casey had mentioned, a fun player comparison, which, given some of the rumors, I wanted to take a little bit of a step back. And also, that can kind of relate a little bit as far as the roster is concerned. How do we actually construct it? And how do we add all of the different options and make this puzzle work, or at least have as many options as possible to make this puzzle work? So it's going to be a little bit of a fun comparison that we have a little bit later on in the show. But I'm really happy to be with you guys tonight, and should be a lot of fun to be able to discuss a whole lot of different things.
Is it the calm before the storm, or are the Dodgers done?
Good question. I don't think the Dodgers really are ever done making any type of moves.
I mean, like they picked up Julian Fernandez today. We'll get into him here in a minute.
Yeah. They're going to pick up a lot of different guys, and especially with guys like that, they're going to try to add a whole lot of depth to this organization. A whole lot of, especially on the pitching side. We talked about it on the previous show. They used 40 something pitchers during the 2024 season to get them through the whole 162 game season. Now, they only have 40 players that they can have on an active roster at a given time, so they're going to have to get a bunch of different guys to help fill in. He's certainly one of those guys that they can fill in, and that also leads to the potential of them adding additional starting pitching or additional relief pitching coming up down the line, just to add as much depth as possible. Yes, they have a lot of really good options right now. Yes, they have a lot of really good depth, but with the Dodgers, it seems like they can never have enough starting pitching. Previously in the show, we talked about Nick Pivetta. Now, one thing that I didn't realize at the time, he does have the qualifying offer attached to him. What that means, if you're unfamiliar with that, is in order for the Dodgers to sign him, if the Dodgers were to assign him, because he rejected the qualifying offer, he would have to, the Dodgers would lose out on a draft pick or possibly multiple draft picks. And that certainly enters in the equation. I think we were looking at that maybe as a shorter term option, because I think the most likely option for a lot of different pitchers, except for Roki Sasaki, would be just a 1 year type of deal to fit in the timeline. I think that moves him out of the equation, but there could be some other options down the line, or even just adding some of these minor league guys as depth. As you mentioned, a Julian Fernandez, who was just signed today by the Dodgers. There's been some other guys that were brought in, even a Giovanni Gallegos, I think is going to get a very real shot. So there's going to be some rooms for roster spots opening, which means with the Dodgers roster currently at 39 players, there really isn't a whole lot of room for moves, but the Dodgers can still be creative in how they go about making moves, and certainly trades are still on the table.
Okay, so we had a question from, I can't remember who it was. By the way, before we go on, I about fainted. Right field pavilion, way to go. Wow, what a Christmas present that is. That is just incredible, right field pavilion. I cannot tell you how much, Austin, I appreciate that. That is $50 super chat. Just about, like I said, just about makes me black out. Seeing it comes up in like pink, hot pink, because YouTube wants you to notice just how awesome right field pavilion is. So, hey, you are a rock star. Can't tell you how much we thank you. My Christmas wish is that people like and subscribe to Dodgers Daily. Keep up the great work, fellas. So not only a $50 super chat, which is incredible to begin with, then some even more incredible words being brought to the game tonight by the right field pavilion, Austin. Wow.
Yeah, I can't express my gratitude enough for that.
It's humbling.
It's humbling with the work, especially that Casey and I are able to do and put in to try to make this as good as we possibly can. To know that it's actually going out there and being appreciated really does mean a lot. Because it helps shine a light not just on the Dodgers organization, but a lot of people within this Dodgers organization that normally do not get the credit that they deserve or nowhere near it. So extremely grateful, right field pavilion. Super thankful. Merry Christmas to you back as well.
Okay, so we have a comment here from Steve Stell. Steve, always Steele. I believe is that. Hey, Steve, if you would, but just kind of type that out exactly how your last name is pronounced. I think it's Steve Steele. I want to make sure and get that right. So we have a comment: re-sign Walker and both the Hernandez, which would be Teo and Kike. Then sign Scott and Roki. That's 5 people. The roster right now is at 38, correct, Austin?
I believe it's at 39 right
39.
now.
39.
Yes.
Okay, so we had a question on our last video. Hey, great discussion about the hot stove. Want to hear more about how, if the Dodgers do make moves, how do they squeeze it all into the roster? So break down the amount of people on the roster, what it would take to go get the targets.
Yeah, so that an incredibly great question, and that it's difficult to see the
which is why I've been saying
moves
trade. I'm sorry,
there.
Austin. I've been saying trade. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. I think the most likely avenue in order to fit those guys onto the roster would be trade. So first thing, let's go through. The easiest to look at is probably lineup wise, just because they are the more predictable that they're actually going to be in the lineup, and I think there's less injury concern hitting wise than pitching wise. If you were to bring back both Teoscar Hernandez and Kike Hernandez, where this lineup would sit, again, not looking at the actual math as far as the 40-man roster is concerned, we'll get to that in just a minute, means that with the roster, if you keep all of the guys, that moves Andy Pages and James Outman to the minor league level. Gavin Lux also has minor league options, but those are the only 3 guys on the major league roster with minor league options. You could look to trade a Lux to keep it Pages up there, although that leaves you a little bit more limited infield options. You could potentially look to designate for assignment or try to offload the Chris Taylor contract. But really, those are the only moves that you could possibly make. I think 2 is probably the max that you can add to this lineup in order to make things fit together. The other pitchers that we're talking about, Walker Buehler and Tanner Scott and Roki Sasaki. First, with Roki Sasaki, he's going to be an international signing. He's still, 23 years old. So you actually would sign him basically like an international free agent, which means he would not be added to the 40-man roster until after spring training starts, right, assuming that he makes the opening day roster, which could be a possibility. Although even with that, you look at a lot of the pitchers that are on there, depending on who's healthy, if everybody in the starting rotation is healthy, assuming that Shohei Ohtani doesn't start the season, which means you only have 13 pitchers, it's likely that maybe a Dustin May gets moved to the bullpen, maybe a Tony Gonsolin starts the year at the minor league level, which I don't think is necessarily likely, because right now the projected starting rotation is Blake Snell, Yoshi Yamamoto, Tyler Glasnow, Tony Gonsolin, and Dustin May, according to Fangraphs.
And Shohei.
And Shohei. That's when he's healthy. That would be the 6-man rotation that you would have right there. And then the bullpen being Kopech, Trinan, Phillips, Banda, Brazier, Vesia, Edgardo Henriquez, and Michael Grove, according to if the season were to start tomorrow. That would be what Fangraphs would have as the projected rotation and bullpen. That includes 14 pitchers, but the 14th is Shohei until he's ready to come back, which probably won't be at the start of the season. You will only have 13 pitchers available. So if you want to add in a Walker Buehler, it would probably take the place of a Tony Gonsolin or a Dustin May, assuming that one of them needs to get a little bit more rehab. Dustin May does not have any minor league options, so he would have to be on the major league roster once he is ready to go, whether that's in the rotation or the bullpen. Tanner Scott is another one of those guys that you.
Oh, wait a minute! Couldn't he take the place of Michael Grove and Dustin May move to the pen, or Edgardo Henriquez?
He could take the place of one of those guys too. Yes, there's other guys.
And then move May to the pen, right?
Yes, yes.
So that's a flexible option.
Yes, that is a flexible option.
But it has to be. Well, that's why it's valuable to have guys like Michael Grove and Edgardo Henriquez that have minor league options.
Incredibly valuable. And
yes,
actually,
that's
out
why.
Of the projected bullpen right now, there are only 3 guys that have minor league options.
Yes, that's
and
a problem.
None of the other guys that are in your bullpen have really any sort of length attached to them. Meaning, I think there still needs to be like a Ryan Yarbrough type out of the bullpen who needs to be able to provide length for your bullpen. It can't just be you have a bunch of 1-inning guys, because then they're going to be overused. That would be one of my
Michael Grove's a multi-inning guy.
He is a multi-inning guy, but when you look at this roster, and especially when you add free agents, there are only on the projected rotation 4 guys that have minor league options. Tony Gonsolin, if he's healthy, there's a good chance that he's going to be in this rotation. Alex Vesia is going to be on the major league roster unless things go terribly wrong. In which case, if you add 2 more pitchers to that mix, they take the place of Edgardo Henriquez and Michael Grove.
Now nobody has options.
Now nobody has options, and you don't have guys that can provide length out of the bullpen, which I don't think is necessarily ideal. That is assuming everybody is healthy and they're not dealing with any type of injuries, or they don't want to give guys additional rest, which is an X factor that could be as part of the mold. Now, that's just the status of where this roster is at. Again,
that screws up your up-down train that they create depth with.
It does, assuming that they don't go to we're going to give this guy rest and there's going to be some sort of injury occurrence that takes place. If you want to take a look at this in a visual, which I know it can be a little bit difficult with me audibly describing it, please check out the Fangraphs roster resource for the Dodgers. This is where a lot of this is happening, and the Dodgers could have a completely different idea as far as what they're wanting to do with this.
You want me to put that up, Austin?
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead and put that up so fans
Dodgers
can
Fangraphs?
Absolutely, yeah. Fangraphs.
Okay, and then just tell me where to scroll. I can do that right now.
Yeah, so that's going to give you at least a visual picture as far as what they're projecting.
Okay, it's on now.
If they don't actually have for the Dodgers, if they don't make any additional additions to this roster. Now, that's one part of the equation. Then they have to figure out how do they go ahead and make the actual numbers work for roster, because they currently have 39 players on the 40-man roster. They have to create, basically with those signings, which is both the Hernandez brothers, and then you have Walker and Roki and Tanner Scott. They have to create 3 additional roster spots for those players if you were to add all of those guys. One of them, I'm assuming, would be a Hunter Fiducia. You could look on some type of trade. The reason why I'm advocate for trading Hunter Fiducia is not because I don't like Hunter Fiducia. I really do. I just see him with having the least amount of opportunities with Austin Barnes back and with Dalton Rushing coming up. I think they prefer to give opportunities to Dalton Rushing, and because they re-signed Austin Barnes or extended his club option, that's a clear sign. I want Hunter Fiducia to get an opportunity. That leaves you with 2 spots that you can open up or try to open up some sort of roster. perhaps that's an avenue for making some type of trade for somebody, whether that's somebody on your actual bench or lineup for like a Gavin Lux or a Chris Taylor, although those might be a little bit more difficult to be doing something like that. And then you might have to dip into some of the pitching depth that you have, which I don't know if the Dodgers really want to do much of the pitching depth. The guys that have minor league options are the guys that are going to help the Dodgers get through a full 162 game season. The Bobby Miller, Landon Knack, Nick Frasso, Justin Robleski, Ben Kasparius, all of those guys right now aren't projected to make the major league team, but they are projected to provide innings for this Dodgers team if history has any say. So I hesitate to trade much or most of those guys, not because I don't want them to get opportunities. I desperately do, but I understand that the Dodgers need to have guys like that on their roster who can help sustain a full 162 game season. And most importantly, get Tyler Glasnow, get Yoshi Yamamoto, get Shohei Ohtani, get Blake Snell, get these starters to the postseason, because then that's going to get the best version of the Dodgers in the postseason.
Yeah. Hey, just before you move on, I'm actually going through the roster right here. If you look on here you see the names, right? Yeah. So here's all your 40-man roster names, right? You see it here. And then on this column right here, it says options or R5. That R5 stands for Rule 5. That's the Rule 5 draft that the Dodgers just lost Garrett McDaniels to. And so if you want to ever know who has options left, which means who can still be sent down to the minor leagues, just go to Fangraphs, go up here and click roster resource, click the Dodgers. I'm sure you've done this before, but I'm going to do it again. Yeah. And right here in this options column right here, see, so Andy Pages has one more option year. Gavin Lux, believe it or not, has 2 option years because you get 3 total and they don't have to be consecutive, right? So not any for Austin Barnes, no option years for obviously Miguel Rojas, Chris Taylor, Blake Snell, Yoshi, Tyler Glasnow. So all the NAs mean there are no options available, minor league options available for those players. And so if you ever want to know that, this is where Austin's getting his information as far as how you fill out the 26. So if there's 39 guys on the 40-man roster now, and the Dodgers still need to sign Teo, they still need to sign maybe Kike Hernandez, maybe Roki Sasaki, and even a Clayton Kershaw, or even one more than that. That's going to put you at like 43, 44. So explain to us how we do that option, Austin.
Yeah, can you repeat one? I know Kershaw's added in there. Roki Sasaki, both of those could be added to the 40-man
Teo and
roster.
Kike.
Teo and Kike. Both Kershaw and Roki.
Tanner Scott, there's 5.
Yeah,
Tanner Scott.
Yeah. Roki and Kershaw could be added after spring training starts. So after spring training starts, there are several pitchers who are on this active roster. Think of Brusdar Graterol, Kyle Hurt, River Ryan, Gavin Stone, and likely an Emmett Sheehan, who are going to miss at least some significant time during the 2025 season because of the injuries that they have. Those players could be moved to the 60-day injured list once spring training starts, which opens up a spot for a Kershaw to be brought back once spring training starts. So then you have optionality throughout the offseason. Roki Sasaki can't be added to this roster until spring training starts, so he would be another one of those guys that could be added. If you wanted to bring back a Kike Hernandez, I'm sure you could work out a back deal to where he could be added after spring training starts. So
there's 3 out of the 5.
That leaves 3 out of the 5. So then you have Teo, and then you have Tanner Scott. One of those guys could be signed with and be that 40th man, and then the other guy you could trade a Hunter Fiducia, and you can make that work.
Or DFA somebody.
Or you could DFA somebody. There are options that you can go ahead and do to make that work. That just leaves you with limited availability on your roster for guys that can move up and down, and doesn't leave a lot of room for a lot of young guys. If you add both of the Hernandez brothers to this lineup, to this team, and you don't subtract anybody that is a veteran, that means you're starting all veteran guys, and then you're not getting any experience for some of the younger guys, which I've expressed quite a bit over the course of the offseason that they need to give at-bats to some young guys, and that creates a little bit of difficulty with that. Both tremendous players, and they both helped this Dodgers team win a World Series last year. So I'd be excited if they came back, but there are costs to that happening.
Hey, we have another $50 super chat from our rock star, Christopher Navarro, man. Christopher, you are an absolute rock star. We cannot thank you enough. It's flattering. It's humbling. I don't even know what. You just put an ing on the end of it, and that's how it feels whenever we see you guys show appreciation like you do. Because I'm going to say this point blank, Austin and I work very hard to gather, not necessarily, like the Patrick Copen deal. He got hit in the eye. We'll get into that a little bit more as we move on. But we haven't shared that because I haven't had the okay from Patrick to do so. Does that make sense? And so Patrick gave me the okay a couple days ago. So we'll get into what happened as he got hit by a ball getting sent back to him. So I kind of say that to say, typically speaking, we have a lot of this stuff that we work really hard to get close to so we can know what's going on, and not necessarily to share like breaking news, but just kind of to give you the vibe of what it's like in the system. So whenever you guys show appreciation for the hard work that we put into this, we can't tell you how much we appreciate you guys. And then all of the interviews that get put together, that requires research and all that. So that requires time, the editing, all that, all of the analytics that Austin spends hours putting just scenarios and analytics together. So hopefully when it comes out, it's a good show for you wonderful Dodgers fans out there. So Christopher Navarro, you are a rock star. Right Field Pavilion, you are a rock star. Cannot thank you enough. Thank you guys so much.
Yeah, first off, Merry Christmas to you guys. I know it's the Christmas season, so absolutely. I can't be more appreciative of that. Like Casey had mentioned, we spend hours doing this, not just during the off season, which I believe we've had close to 30 hours or so of live streams since the season ended, since October 30th. We've been live a lot during the course of this offseason, just interacting with you guys, talking a lot about the offseason, but during the season as well. I spend hours upon hours and upon hours going to a lot of these games, getting familiar with a lot of these guys, where a lot of people just don't have the opportunity to be able to do that or the time to be able to do that. And I'm grateful and appreciative of the guys in this system for welcoming me and put it up with me for going to a lot of these games up on.
They love you to death. They love you to death.
Oh, I know. Yeah,
they mention you every time I talk to somebody from Great Lakes. They always mention you first.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I love that place. I love doing this, and I love interacting with you guys. I miss baseball right now. Yeah, absolutely miss it. I miss hanging out with the people, and you guys help make this off season a whole lot of fun. So couldn't be more thankful of you guys. Thankful for Christopher Navarro, who's absolutely amazing. Super grateful for you guys.
Thank you to Gregory, our wonderful moderator that's in the house tonight. Steve Steele, Chilltown All-Star. Amrokati, Ella Minerva, all of you guys and gals. Mr. Classic is in the house. Thank you so much for joining Dodgers Dogs as part of the Dodgers Daily Network. Cannot tell you how much we appreciate you joining. Okay, so let's get back into business. It's like just that nagging little, it's just nagging, I'll say. This Nolan Arenado thing, it's like you just kind of want to go, okay, like we did last show, like just, okay, shoe away, shoe off, right? And then it just keeps resurfacing, Austin. I mean, a lot of times where there's smoke, there's fire. I'm not saying there is.
Yeah.
But what is going on? Why is this continue to be a nagging situation as far as the Dodgers fan goes?
It's on one hand, he has almost Hall of Fame pedigree. There might be some debate that you have. He has certainly a great resume attached to him, and there's certainly a belief that there could be some upside in that. There could be a sentiment of the fan base that's not as much of a fan of the style of play that Max Muncy has. Totally fair and understandable if you don't like the high strikeouts, the high walks and home runs, the 3-true outcome type of player that he is. Or there's the sentiment that Nolan Arenado is the exact same player that he was a couple of years ago, or an automatic assumption that just because he's going to come to the Dodgers means he's going to be that type of player for the Dodgers. And of course, you want to have that. And it's easy just to move Max Muncy over to second base, and then you don't have to deal with Gavin Lux anymore. I think that is where some of the sentiment for the Nolan Arenado stuff is coming from some Dodgers fans. Also, there has been a lot of rumors about him wanting to come to the Dodgers, which certainly you want guys who want to come play for the Dodgers to come to your team. I just don't necessarily think the math works out. Or, and this is another part of this, I think with going out and getting a Nolan Arenado, that could potentially create some problems rather than fix all of the problems. Just for example, if you were to go out and get Nolan Arenado, I'm assuming you're not getting him and paying him as much as the Dodgers would pay him, which some of the Rockies paying for a little bit of the money. Certainly St. Louis would probably take some of the money, so it probably wouldn't be abnormally expensive, although it will be expensive for the Dodgers to take on, not just money-wise, but 3 years of his age 34 through 36 seasons. He would be the third baseman for the Dodgers and probably be just about every single day third baseman for the Dodgers. I don't think they're getting him to be a platoon type bat. I don't think they're paying him that type of money to be that option, although I'd be happy to be able to prove wrong with that, in which case the other choice would be if they either trade Max Muncy or move him over to second base, which I don't think is a realistic option. For left field, he has not played left field since 2018, and if you look at some of the plays that he made out in left field,
I know. But neither is Dalton Rushing. Dalton Rushing's never done it.
He's never done it, but
and Teo's not very good out there anyway.
But I also think with Rushing, he is younger and more athletic, right, and he has time to be able to do it at the minor league level and fail there before he comes up to the big league level, and has another option that he could potentially turn to at the catching position and do backup catcher, fill in some at bats through that option. I just don't like the versatile Max Muncy.
Do you like him better at second base than left field? Without the shift?
Without the I'm not saying I like Max Muncy at second base. I think he would.
I'm saying which one's worse, second base or without the shift or left field? I mean, is there really a significant difference?
He's played a lot more second base, so that's I think where you would have to do it. But then if you're having Mookie Betts and Max Muncy at the middle, that's not a great defensive up the middle, and there's going to be a lot of double plays that you are not able to turn. Yeah, so that is an side aspect of the Nolan Arenado discussion and bringing him up. And so then you look at his numbers.
So that would say Muncy in left field. I mean, Teo's defense isn't very good, right? So, I mean, is there that big of a drop-off if you try somebody else out there?
I think there will be a drop-off. Teoscar Hernandez, just to let you know, did not grade out well defensively, really at all in left field. But also then you're throwing in the aspect of if you have Max Muncy out there, which I think would be worse because he has not played since 2018 with the Oakland Athletics. Go back and watch some of the footage.
I understood.
Teoscar Hernandez
trust me, I'm just playing devil's advocate.
Yeah, I know. I think Teoscar is a much better outfielder than Max Muncy, and I think there will be a lot of plays that do get missed if that is the case. So then that leaves you to think, okay, with Arenado.
Read Christopher Navarro's last comment.
Oh, yeah.
About Gavin Lux.
Yes. Yeah. I know. Yeah. So they're not going to move Gavin Lux on there. So with Arenado, he has been a really good player. I'm sure he would love to be a Dodger, and I'm sure even there's probably a good chance that he could bounce back with that. But with the numbers that he's put up the past couple of seasons, and with the fit on this roster, and with you already having a really cost-controlling third baseman, I don't see how it fits for this Dodgers team, which actually leads in, this is a pretty good segue, into the spreadsheet that I had created. You want to go ahead and pull that up? So what I've done with this is I've actually looked at two different players. Now, what I don't want you to do, I do not want you to guess who these two players are. Not at all. I do not want you to guess who these two players are. What I want you to do is just look at the numbers. You might have to zoom in a little bit to see all of the numbers, whether that's on here or whether that's just on your phone. I know there's a lot of blank space, but that's because there's a lot of statistics that I like to put on there, and I have a very
I zoomed it in, and it doesn't get every column when I do that, so I'm going to have to go back and forth. Do you want me to zoom back out?
Yeah, you can just zoom back and forth with that. So what I want you to do is you have the top one and the bottom one, player A and player B. What I want you to do is go through some of these numbers, not guessing who they are, but actually go through and say which of these two players, which these are their past 2 seasons, 2023 and 2024, which of these profiles would I prefer? Or do you have a strong preference on any of these 2 profiles?
Tell them what I said, Austin, and I don't know which 2 players you're talking about.
Yeah, so Casey went out for me, and it depends on the position. The top one, he said, a third or corner outfield. The bottom one, shortstop or center, is what you said.
So if you're looking for a third baseman or a corner outfielder, I'm taking the top guy, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
If you're looking for a center fielder or a shortstop, more of your baseball executor type guy, I'm going with the bottom guy, right?
Yep.
Even though they have the lower batting average.
Yeah. So
go through these numbers, Austin. Can you see them as I do them?
Yeah. So let's see. I'm just going to go through them, and I'll let you follow me just because I don't see the exact screen. So
do it from an advanced analytics perspective, not just read the numbers.
So what you're seeing on here is you're seeing 2 different types of players, both with some different strengths attached to them. So you're going to notice that the top player has a little bit more power. That's reflected with the slugging percentage. That's reflected with the ISO. Also, if you go to the expected slugging, that is significantly higher than the bottom player's production of what they're able to produce. So the top player certainly has more power. What's interesting about the bottom player is they do not chase. They chase significantly less than top player, which is reflected with the walk percentage. The strikeout percentages are relatively similar, difference by about 3%. Top player has a little bit better strikeout percentage, but walks a lot less than the bottom player. And so when you add in the walks and then you neutralize the power component, they equal out to about roughly the same hitter, 104 and 106 WRC plus. What's also unique about both
in terms of value, not the same hitter, but in terms of value.
In terms of value, I should say. Yeah. Yes. You look at both of these guys, and outs above average, which is all the way on the right, are roughly about the same, 15 and 13 at their respective position or positions.
Which is tough. I mean, that's not an exact defense is not an exact measurement.
It is not. That is about as fair as I could try to make it,
understood.
At least relative to their expectations. You'll notice that the bottom player actually has a higher weighted stolen base. Weighted stolen base takes the number of stolen bases, both the frequency and the efficiency.
So
of
negative is good there?
So positive is good, negative is bad.
So bottom's better.
Bottom is a lot better.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's your shortstop center fielder.
it is your shortstop center fielder. But what you're noticing right here is they do some different things, but they both end up with or have ended up with a lot of the relatively same offensive output for their past 2 seasons, with WRC plus wise, with their WAR components. They have both been somewhat valuable players.
This one here, that I just don't like that. That I can't get. I have a hard time getting past that.
Past
6.8 walk percentage. I just would struggle with that walk percentage.
You have any idea who these 2 players are?
I honestly have no clue.
Okay, I'll give you one hint. One of these is Nolan Arenado.
I would say Nolan Arenado is the bottom guy.
He is not the bottom guy. He's
really?
The top guy.
Okay.
Nolan Arenado's the top guy.
Okay.
And Ha-Seong
So how does he not walk more than that then?
Yes, he does not walk a lot.
That's amazing.
Ha-Seong
And then he doesn't
Kim
hit a whole lot of home.
Guy.
But I'll tell you one thing though. Here's the case for that. And I was going to make that before you said that.
Yeah.
So you say he doesn't hit very many home runs. I don't care. Okay. Because what I care about is the ratio between strikeouts and home runs, correct? Mm-hmm. So if you don't hit a whole lot of home runs, then you better not strike out, right? Whereas if you do hit a whole lot of home runs like Teo and Max, then you can strike out more. So here's how you tell the difference between those two. Let me turn that off. I got somebody calling me from Dallas. That's a 214 prefix.
Somebody's trying to call in the show.
Yeah. So, okay. So see these 2 stats right here? That K percentage on the left, 15.5. ISO is 15.7 if you move the decimals over 2 spots. Those are identical. So anything close to identical between ISO, which is an independent strength number, that's a power index, okay? K percentage, that's obvious. If those two are equal, that means that you have a very good trade-off between the amount of home runs that you hit and the amount of strikeouts you have. So although Nolan Arenado does not hit a whole lot of home runs, his strikeout to home run ratio is extremely positive and likely more positive than either Max Muncy or Teoscar Hernandez.
Yeah, that's true. He does have a good balance if you're to look at his strikeout
balance is
numbers
good.
and
He's more balanced.
his ISO. The question is he going to be able to maintain that ISO? You look at some of the numbers, especially the
Well, why
hard
wouldn't he?
hit
You'd have to tell me why you don't think he would.
Well, I'm saying that some of the numbers, especially reflected year over year, at like the barrel percentage or the hard hit percentage.
So this is over a career.
Down a little bit. So this right here is just the past 2 seasons of what he's able to do.
Which is good sample size.
If you look at some of the trends, they're starting to go down at least a little bit with some of the powers. Now, certainly he could change that around, and especially if he's added to the Dodgers lineup, that could be a change for him during the upcoming season. But I think we've seen some of those numbers dip down a little bit from what they've been towards the height of his career. So at the top, we have Nolan Arenado. And then we have the production of Ha-Seong Kim, which is different from Nolan Arenado.
I had it exactly right then, didn't I?
Yeah, you had the actual position.
I had Ha-Seong Kim nailed as a bottom player.
Absolutely.
I had that nailed. That's awesome.
And here's the reason why I bring this up, and here's the reason why I wanted to do this blind.
Go get this guy.
Here's the reason why this is different is because when we're talking about players, I think we often have a bias as far as the name of the player is concerned. And Nolan Arenado, certainly because of his pedigree and because of his past performance, because of his peak, I think that is the type of player that Dodgers fans often correlate. But when you look at the past 2 seasons, when you compare some of the numbers, yes, there's a trade-off between power and actual walking, but they have both ended up at similar spots. And if you
Kim had a 1 higher WAR than Nolan Arenado.
Yeah, and 150 less plate appearances. Yes.
And 100. Wow.
Yes. So,
which I've done some breakdowns why I wanted him and compared him to even Willy Adames, but this is even more damning in terms of damning is the exact opposite word I'm looking for.
Yeah.
As far as this makes me want him more.
So, and here it is again. And when the Dodgers had said Mookie Betts is going to be the shortstop for this team, I think I like a lot of people just kind of brushed it off and said, okay, I'm ready to move on because the Dodgers had made a statement and I'm ready to roll with what the Dodgers had. If the Dodgers wanted additional assurance, I actually think the fact that Ha-Seong Kim is going to miss a good chunk of the season actually plays in the Dodgers' benefit.
It does.
Because that actually allows the Dodgers to be able to play Mookie Betts at shortstop, which, yes, I don't want for the long term of the Dodgers, but that will allow the Dodgers to be able to see, is he the shortstop or can he be a shortstop? Because one of the things that doesn't get reflected on here, because I didn't want to spoil who these players are, the top player only plays one position, third base. There's no positional versatility. Ha-Seong Kim can play both second base, shortstop, and third base, which means if Mookie Betts halfway through the season, you get through halfway through the season, and it's obvious Mookie Betts is not a shortstop, and you still want to have Tommy Edman to play a lot of different positions. Yes, you could have Miguel Rojas fill in the position, but he is not an everyday shortstop, and the Dodgers know that, and he's getting older, and you don't know what his production is going to be like for this upcoming season. I think he's insurance for shortstop right now. Could that insurance be better production later with a Ha-Seong Kim, who has been incredibly valuable at the shortstop position, which means if Mookie Betts is not able to make shortstop work, perhaps you can move Ha-Seong Kim there and then move a Mookie Betts either to a second base if Gavin Lux is not performing, or if you need a corner outfielder, if Andy Pages is not working out, if Dalton Rushing hasn't worked out, if you do not bring back a Teoscar Hernandez, there is always the option to move Mookie Betts back to the outfield, just like they did for the 2024 season. Or if Max Muncy gets hurt again, or if he needs a platoon option, you can put Ha-Seong Kim, who I believe has a 120 WRC plus against left-handed pitching, as a platoon option for Max Muncy, or a platoon option for Gavin Lux, and be that Miguel Rojas replacement or a Chris Taylor replacement, somebody off of the bench. I actually think the Dodgers, with what they're saying, could be true. Yes, Mookie Betts gets to train and be the shortstop, and he gets the first dibs at shortstop. And if it's the worst case scenario is Ha-Seong Kim is a bench bat, a better bench bat than what we have, because right now the Dodgers bench, I don't really have a lot of trust in those guys being able to come in during like a postseason type series and be able to perform with Chris Taylor, with Miguel Rojas, who was solid last year but is getting up there in age, and in Austin Barnes. I think there's going to be some improvement. So I think this type of player provides a lot more optionality to be able to move things around, to be able to put him at second base if you need to, shortstop if Mookie Betts doesn't work out, third base if there's an injury, or platoon him with a Max Muncy. And I think the first couple of months of the season would allow you to find a whole lot of different options. So I think there's a lot of bias towards, because Nolan Arenado has spent a lot of time or grew up in Los Angeles, wants to be a Dodger. But if you take away the aspect of the name, there's somebody that you could get and pay him the exact same amount that you would pay Nolan Arenado, or maybe less, depending on what type of deal that you would get. And he defensively would actually fit a lot of the needs if the Dodgers wanted to address that.
And the versatile piece to
it. That's where I say,
I've been saying Kim all offseason.
Mm-hmm. I think if they were to add another piece to this infield, that still remains the option that would make the most sense. It's the
clear option right now. So, hey, I love your work. This is maybe the best work you've done out of some awesome work. First of all, I got to commend you that you put it on comment only, so I couldn't run into this thing, and don't think that got past me, Brew Baker. So I couldn't run into this thing and mess up all this great work you did, right? So that, first of all, that was very intelligent. And of all the great work you've done, I got to know what the hell is XWO Bacon. What the hell is that?
XWO Bacon? Yeah.
What the hell is that?
I've heard anybody call it that.
Well, that's a non-statistician. That's a 51-year-old old school dude right there, okay?
Yeah. So first off, we'll start with WOBA, because that's where the root of it is.
So that's expected WOBA?
Yeah, well, so
expected weighted on base average.
We got to back it up, because we got to start with the roots. So start with WOBA first, because a lot of this gets added onto it. So WOBA, it takes into
right there,
on an on-base percentage rate, the actual quality of contact. So
what's the con?
Home run. Yeah. We'll get there in just a second.
Okay,
but I got to explain
let me
this
shut
to the
up.
audience.
Sorry. Okay.
So when you are hitting, how you get on base, there's different weights to it.
Sure.
A home run is better than a single. A single is better than a walk. And there's different weights that get at it.
You skipped over you went too fast over the weight. You need to emphasize the weight. Yes. There's different weights. So getting on base, great. On base percentage, wonderful. Yes. But it doesn't show you how guys get on base. Yes. And some ways of getting on base are more productive than others. Obviously, hitting a home run is more productive than walking, right?
Yes.
Or getting a single. So the W part of that, the weight part of that, is weighing the types of ways that guys get on base. So if you have an on base percentage that are the same, but two guys that have the same on base percentage, but one has a higher weighted on base percentage, that means that guy's getting on base the same amount of time while also doing more damage. Did I say that right? Okay.
Yes. Yeah. It takes into account the type of hit that you get. Now, let's add the X before that. So we have WOBA, which is the statistic that is most prevalent in creating weighted runs created plus, WRC plus, the statistic I refer to most on the offensive side. If you add in the X, anytime you see X statistic, that's talking about expected statistic. Yeah. And so that's taking into account both the quality of the contact that they're making and what they would expect the WOBA to be given the batted ball data that they get. So every single hit, there? Yeah, every single hit in Major League Baseball, they can actually measure to the infinite degree how well of a hit, the launch angle, the hit speed, all of that different stuff. And they add that together to WOBA to say, okay, this is what we expected. So perhaps hitter got lucky. That's why I recorded both the slugging and the slugging, the slugging percentage and the expected slugging percentage. So that's XWOBA. Then we get to what did you catch it? XWO Bacon?
XWO Bacon, yeah. Hey,
XWO
before you move
Bacon.
on, let me kind of give you another like coach's viewpoint of that.
Yeah.
So like as a coach, you have a guy that hits a 106 mile an hour line drive to left fielder and he's out. And he comes in the dugout, slams his helmet down and drops an F-bomb, right? Mm-hmm. As a coach, what do you tell that guy? Hey man, good hit. It's baseball.
Yeah.
Keep stroking, right?
Yep. Just
keep doing exactly what you did right there and things will work out for you. What'll happen is you're going to hit a blooper at about 76, and then that will drop, and everything will even out, right?
Yes.
Okay, so we have been doing this expected thing in the game of baseball ever since it's been invented, okay? Now, we haven't put an X on it, but the coaches forever and managers have been telling their players forever that if you keep hitting the ball hard, eventually the averages are going to average out, and things are going to work out for you. So all that X means, all that expected means is you're actually doing what you're supposed to be doing to have success. It's just that you might be getting unlucky right now because you're hitting the ball right at somebody. But if you keep doing it over a long period of data summation, it's all going to even out, and then your numbers are going to look like they should be based on how hard you're hitting the ball.
Yes.
Okay, there you go.
Yes, that's exactly right. So then you get to XWOBACon, which is what it is. The con
No, it's XWO Bacon.
XWO Bacon. We'll go with that. Okay. XWO Bacon adds the last three letters are con. That takes into that is on contact. So that removes both of the walks, the strikeouts, and the hit by pitches, and just looks at the contact that the hitter makes. What is their expected weighted on base
when they do
average.
hit it?
So that actually just looks at the contact variable and not take into account the walks, the hit by pitches. So that would
does
be
it take into account strikeouts?
I don't believe that they count strikeouts.
Okay.
I actually don't know the
so
exact
only
formula.
on base at bats that don't require contact to get on base.
Yeah, it's just looking at the batted ball data and saying,
Okay,
what is their XWOBA based on their contact? When they make contact, what does that look like? So that's what that statistic is looking at. It's actually one of the more advanced ones.
That'd be a good coaching tool. I don't know how good of a tool that is as far as evaluating players, but to be able to say, hey, whenever you're actually putting the ball in play, look how good of work this is doing for you, right?
Yes.
That'd be a good tool for a player.
It's a great tool for a player, and it actually shows you, okay, when they actually make contact. Is it just something where Ha-Seong Kim has a good WOBA because he's getting on base, because he's walking a lot, or does it have to do with the quality of contact? So I think I think it's a fun thing to be able to add in there and add to the tool bag for you guys.
So,
that's one of the things. Showed Fangraphs, showed these numbers is because we want to equip you guys with as many tools as possible to be able to learn this game better. Because when you take into account all of these advanced numbers, then you start getting into a deep dive, and then you start loving this game more.
So here's a big one. I mean, I think most people would say, well, who's going to hit more home runs? Who's the better power hitter? Who's going to do more damage? Out of 100 baseball fans that are just casual baseball fans, between Nolan Arenado and Ha-Seong Kim, which one would they pick?
Nolan, probably.
Okay, so when you actually look at the weighted on-base average, right, meaning what kind of hits are they getting to get on base? How are they getting on base? This suggests right here the Ha-Seong Kim actually does more damage than Nolan Arenado does, which is...
It's relative, very relative. So they're very close to each other. If they're close.
Understood.
Equal,
But I think most people would expect Ha-Seong Kim to be significantly lower in the weighted on base category because they would consider him to be like a guy that walks, a guy that slaps the ball to right field, a guy that gets a lot of singles, whereas Nolan Arenado gets doubles and home runs. So I would think most people would expect this weighted on base average to be significantly in the favor of Nolan Arenado.
I would assume so, yes. But when you look at some of the numbers, at least the past 2 seasons. Now, if you take account before that,
Right.
Nolan Arenado was a much better player back then. And if that's the type
Yeah,
of player,
sure.
then it's no doubt. And even if you're predicting, hey, who would probably have the better offensive season? I think there's a compelling case if you put Nolan Arenado in the Dodger lineup, that there's a good case that he would probably be the better hitter. But is he the better fit for the roster? If you are even looking to add to this roster,
Exactly.
which you don't have to make this move. As I think it was mentioned in the chat, you already have Tommy Edman and you have Miguel Rojas as backups to the shortstop position, which is a good thing to have. It is a good thing to have backups to your shortstop position. That's probably one of the most premium defensive positions on the field. One of the positions that you have to get right defensively.
No doubt. And it's what the Dodgers need.
It's
they
what
need
the Dodgers need
more
is
than
to
third
get
baseman.
shortstop right and make sure that you have a lot of insurance on that. With Tommy Edman, I think they're expecting him to play a lot in center field. Center field is also one of those positions that you want to get right. So I think if they wanted to add somebody, I think adding another guy who has versatility while also premium quality at shortstop, at least in the past. It could be different after his injury, which could be a risk that you are running into with signing a Ha-Seong Kim, and likely why he's not getting a longer term deal, or at least the deal that he was going to get going into this free agency if he had not been injured. But I think that is probably a safer bet to do that than to go out and get Nolan Arenado, have both Mookie Betts and Max Muncy up the middle, which I think would be the play if you added Nolan Arenado. Great defender at third base. Up the middle defense, I think, is more important than that, and that would be very shaky, to say the least.
So basically what we just showed is that fairly clearly that the underlying statistical measures, and then whenever you compare that with the flexibility and the actual high leverage position that Ha-Seong Kim plays, that Ha-Seong Kim is fairly significantly the better play for the Dodgers than Nolan Arenado. That is, if you can get past the brand name of the two guys. I mean, like I said, it's going to be we can sit here and we can go over WOBA, we can go over X this, we can go over bacon that, right? Amen. And then Dodgers fans can hear that, and I understand what they're saying, and they can go, it's Nolan Arenado, dude. I want Nolan Arenado over Ha-Seong Kim any day of the week and twice on Sundays. How do I argue with that, right? I mean, it's Nolan Arenado. So there's a name brand to it, too, that is going to be very difficult to get past. But I think the Dodgers usually are very good at looking past name brand, and they're very good at looking under the hood and looking at the underlying statistical measures. They knew that Teoscar Hernandez wasn't good at home with Seattle. He was good away from home. They knew that likely when he came to the Dodgers, he would be very good.
Yeah.
That's because they did their homework on all the stuff we just talked about, like the underlying statistical measures, right?
It's the exact same thing that they're doing with Michael Conforto with this
Correct.
upcoming season.
100%.
Which he was
100%.
not performed well in San
100%.
Francisco, but he performed infinitely better, or at least significantly better on the road. They're making that exact same bet they made with Teoscar Hernandez on Michael Conforto this upcoming season. And I'm excited about what he's able to do. And the Dodgers do their homework with all of these different measures. They know all of this. This is not something new that I'm telling the Dodgers. Yeah. This is just something to keep in mind. And ultimately, I trust the Dodgers to make the best
100%.
decision. And these conversations are difficult because it's not just the on-the-field product that you have to keep in mind. There's also the other components of the game that we don't see on the field, the preparation, all of that different stuff that is going to be important that the Dodgers are going to have to value. I just think with Kim, him not being on the field the first couple of months, especially if they're planning on keeping a Gavin Lux and a Mookie Betts around to see how that middle infield works out, actually work in their favor and could create a lot of different options, assuming they get him on perhaps like a 2-year deal for Ha-Seong Kim, get him through this season, then get another year for that, or even just a 1-year deal. They can make that work and see what happens.
So the injury to Ha-Seong Kim was a labrum. I have torn my labrum. That's what I mentioned whenever Yoshinobu Yamamoto got hurt. And I can tell you it's not fun. It burns like a sucker. I mean, it makes it hard to do anything. But who knows? So you have two scenarios here. You have Tommy Edman, who came back and didn't have any at-bats until basically he got to the Dodgers and started hitting where he was hitting a little bit of double-A pitching. Came to the Dodgers, had basically no at-bats for the year, ended up being like an all-star type player. There's case study number one. And then case study number two is Gavin Lux, who took an entire half the season to even be close to an average baseball player, right? Mm-hmm. And so the question with Kim is that I don't have any answer to. That if somebody pushes back on this, I can't really give them a good push back to them, is that, well, okay, a torn labrum, what if Ha-Seong Kim comes in and it takes him half a season to get back to being the type of player that he needs to be to help this type of roster, and we don't even get him until the All-Star break? What good does that do us?
You know what's fun? You know what's awesome about that? The Dodgers have the ability. Well, the Dodgers have the ability to wait as long as Ha-Seong Kim would need to get as healthy as he needs to be.
But then what is he whenever? How long do you have him? Even when he gets back, my problem. So I mean, now you got to get him comfortable again. You got to give him at bats. Not everybody's going to do what Tommy Edman did.
Not everybody's going to do.
So do you have the window after that to give him the runway to get ready? Do you have that ability?
It is something, especially when you're predicting about these, when you're coming back from injury, very difficult to predict. And I don't have confidence, or don't have the ability to say with 100% confidence he's going to be the exact same type of player that he was before. Right. I have no idea if he's going to be like that, or how long it's going to take for him to be like that. Which
does anybody know?
The unpredictability. Nobody knows. Nobody knows. Nobody knows who's on the Dodgers staff is going to stay healthy throughout the season. Otherwise, they would, or how many pitchers they would need. The Dodgers would have added more pitching for the postseason run if they would have known, hey, we're only going to have 3 starters that are going to be healthy for this postseason run, or only a couple that we're going to feel comfortable with. All right, we got to go ahead and add a starter. It's unpredictable, and we don't know what exactly is going to go. If you go on the measures that he had before the injury, then you could see very comparable stuff, and the actual fit to the roster, I think, would be good.
So what's a bigger risk? And the MP's making a good point here. MP's not in favor of Ha-Seong Kim. So what's a bigger risk? Waiting on Ha-Seong Kim to become ready, or assuming that Mookie Betts and Gavin Lux is good enough up the middle?
The bigger risk for both of those could happen the exact same time. You could wait for Ha-Seong Kim and assume that Mookie Betts and Gavin Lux are going to be good.
One is you get Ha-Seong Kim.
I got you now. I think the bigger risk with that is saying, hey, yes, they're both not without risk. I kind of go back and forth.
Well, to me, getting Ha-Seong Kim removes the risk, because now you have both scenarios. Is what you're.
Yes.
That's why I said that, because you immediately went into, well, if you get Ha-Seong Kim, now it's not either or. You have both scenarios.
Yes, and he could always just be somebody that's a little bit more of a bench bat during the 2025 season.
Worst case scenario,
or even best case scenario. If Mookie Betts handles the shortstop position and is really solid, and Gavin Lux is able to perform like the second half, and Max Muncy is healthy, well, then you have a guy that comes off the bench, and that can be a platoon bat maybe for a Gavin Lux or Max Muncy off the bench. And I think he would be a lot more comfortable with a guy like him at the plate during the postseason, a guy who does not chase, and also a guy who has performed very well in high leverage situations. You look at his career numbers, they're actually a lot better in medium and high leverage situations versus low leverage situations for Ha-Seong Kim. I think you would potentially feel comfortable with a guy like that added to your bench if he's able to stay healthy, or as a defense replacement if you need that as well, for like a Max Muncy or somebody like that.
So I guess my biggest pushback would be, okay, best case scenario is great. Ha-Seong Kim comes back healthy. He plays to his capabilities. We just went through the numbers. He's capable of being as good or better player than Nolan Arenado at a position that really the Dodgers need, so they could move Max Muncy or move Mookie Betts to wherever they want to, right? So best case scenario, Ha-Seong Kim comes back like Tommy Edman did. He's very good, and now the Dodgers have whatever flexibility they want with Mookie Betts, right? That's best case scenario. So I guess that's the ceiling. We always talk about prospects hey, like this guy has a huge, like Jose Ramos has a huge ceiling.
Absolutely.
But right now his floor is way too low. Okay. So if he wants to become a major leaguer, he's got to raise his floor, right? So I guess my biggest pushback to people who don't want Ha-Seong Kim is, what's the floor here? I mean, where is the risk? What risk are you taking by bringing this guy on?
Yeah, the only pushback that I could see, and this is just from you could push back on me and saying, hey, you're not keeping consistent with some of your standards as far as keeping consistent and wanting to get plate appearances for some of the prospects, like in Alex Freeland, if he's ready. What sort of role does
put him back on the injured list?
What role do both of those play? Could that be a spot that could go to Alex Freeland? Which it's a little bit more difficult to argue with a pushback like that. I will say that the bench for the Dodgers is going to need to be changed, whether that's during this season or following this season. And having somebody like Ha-Seong Kim, I think, would add a little bit more assurance, even if he is, in the best case scenario, a bench bat. I want this to get younger. Kim is like 29. That's another aspect. Arenado's 34. Kim is 29 years old. So
same offensive player, and he plays shortstop, and he's 5 years younger.
Yeah, so
for the same price.
There's another aspect that you could take with both of those players. So that would limit more roster spots for the guys, but I think there could be an avenue that you could make work with both of those guys. You could always, if you needed to, if it works out with them at shortstop, or you have a surplus of infielders, you could always move a Mookie Betts back to the outfield, or during next offseason with Gavin Lux having 1 year control, or get this, at the trade deadline. Could the Dodgers potentially, if they are like, hey, we're confident with Ha-Seong Kim, we want Mookie Betts to be their second baseman, the Dodgers trade Gavin Lux, whether that's for a relief pitcher or whether that's for some prospects or whatever, because they don't necessarily need him, or they send him back to the minor leagues, trade him during the offseason. They could have a surplus of talent that way. There are a lot of different options. That's what I like, and I think that's what the Dodgers like, is having 100%. Options. I think with Nolan Arenado, he's a good player and has been close to a Hall of Fame player. It limits your options of what you're able to do, or shoehorns you into certain moves. When you don't have the designated or hitter position, and when you do not have first base open, you need to have a lot of guys with positional versatility. Not just two guys, a lot of guys on your roster that can move around, because there's no room for guys to be able to move around it, or guys to just go and hide at the DH spot or the first base spot. They need to be athletic. They need to play a lot of different positions, and I think he provides a lot of really good different positions. That's why I want to make that comparison, because there's a lot of rumors and there's a lot of talk about Arenado potentially coming to the Dodgers, which I'm sure the Dodgers could make something work. It's hard to see that on this end, not knowing what other moves the Dodgers could potentially make to make that work, especially if you have Max Muncy on this roster and he's not able to move over to first or DH. I don't love the prospects of him playing second base or left field. So if you add Arenado, not a great fit. Ha-Seong Kim, I think, is a much better fit and very comparable offensive-wise.
That's crazy. That's absolutely crazy. But anyways, okay, so you went over all of the regression numbers of players after they passed the age of 31 the other night, right? And they were pretty staggering. Let's just kind of sum it up that way. We went through it. If you need to go back through all of the regression numbers, age 32, 33, and 34, they are very staggering. Go back to our last live show that we did on Wednesday night. Austin did just a knockdown, drag out. Awesome job explaining all that. It was eye-opening, okay? So kind of crazy. I've said, and I'm totally wrong on this, is that if Teo was wanting 3 years, I thought that would be a no-brainer for the Dodgers, right? But apparently that's what he's asking for, and the Dodgers are wanting 2 years. And I know Dodgers fans are losing their minds with it, but it makes, after going through that show Wednesday night and actually crunching all the numbers, realizing the amount of holes that Teoscar Hernandez has, his actual age, the 2-year deal makes total sense. And if the Dodgers want to play hardball with Teo Hernandez and say it's 2 years or hit the high, which is tough The problem why the 2 years is tough is because Teo needs 3 more years to hit his pension.
Yes.
That's why he's wanting the 3.
Yep.
So if the Dodgers play the hard ball with the 2 years, I have zero problems with it because it's another example of the Dodgers looking at the underlying metrics. We say this all the time. Players are stocks. So, yes, the performance is what gets you interested in the stock, but it's the future that's going to make you the money on the stock. So the Dodgers are looking at Teoscar Hernandez as a stock. What does his future look like? And when you look at the underlying metrics, it's not positive in Teo's case. So the 2 years is where we're stuck at right here. I'm good with whatever the Dodgers go with.
Yes, yeah, it's with Teoscar Hernandez. Just to summarize, just briefly about some of the research that I found. Once you get to age
hold on
30
a second.
Yeah.
Our rock star Christopher Navarro says he has an I Love Bacon Plus of 198. Christopher has an awesome person.
That's amazing.
Earlier he was talking about them making like a crime scene tape wall of Gavin Lux after he hit it, ran to the wall in left field.
Yeah, I read that one. It's funny. With just to summarize what I was talking about, both once you get to age 32 and beyond, both the quantity of players, the sample size, and some of the percentages. The percentages jump a little bit back and forth. Really, it's weird because they go in like 2-year increments. They're all start going down once you age 32 seasons. So I think from 2000 to 2024 for players that had 250 plate appearances, which this is a 25-year sample, there was like 93 that had a 120 or more OPS plus. I believe that's correct. It was like 90 at age 33. Then it jumps down to 60, which means you're dealing with a lot of limited number of players that are going to reach the 120 OPS plus, which remember with Teoscar Hernandez, because he is not the greatest defensive player out there and because they cannot hide him at the designated hitter position spot, he has to, if he wants to be valuable, be productive offensively, which to his credit, 4 of the past 5 seasons, which have been during the prime of his career, he's had a 130 or more WRC plus. We're setting the bar a little bit lower at 120, 20% above league average. If he's 20% above league average, I think he's still a very productive player on this Dodgers team. It just goes down and down and down as you get age as far as the number of players that actually are able to achieve that type of mark. So you have to be fully bought in. Not just that Teoscar Hernandez is a great and important player in this clubhouse, which he absolutely is, and he is beloved by Dodgers fans. He should be beloved by Dodgers fans, and he absolutely loved being a part of the Dodgers. And you can't express enough what he meant to the 2024 Dodgers. You have to be bought in that he's going to be that type of player for upcoming seasons, because we're already seeing what Chris Taylor is doing as far as his roster spot. And for Dodgers fans, the $15 million that the Dodgers owe him and him taking up a roster spot, that's limiting some of their moves. And if they add Teoscar Hernandez and Kike Hernandez, that's limiting their ability to play Andy Pages at all at the major league level if everybody is healthy, assuming they keep everybody on their roster. You already seen what that type of contract can do towards the back end of the deal, which means you have to be extremely confident that he's the type of player that is going to help this team, not just in 2025, which is important, but this lineup is already going to be really, really solid. You have to be convinced that he is necessity during the upcoming seasons, depending on the length, and that he's going to be significantly better than other comparable players that are on this roster. I think he is likely going to be a better player than, for example, if you were to play Andy Pages full-time on the roster during the upcoming season. But what does that look like in a couple of seasons? And is it important to give Andy Pages or Dalton Rushing or some of these younger guys at bats during the upcoming season?
At some point, you got to get younger. At some point, you do. At least with the non-Mookie Betts type players.
And that's exactly right. How do the Dodgers view Teoscar Hernandez and how do they actually get younger? If it's a shorter term deal, I think that helps the Dodgers
on the
much
margins. That's how you
significantly.
get youngers on the margins.
You get better on. So with Teoscar Hernandez, with the 2-year deal, if that is the holdout, and that's what the Dodgers are wanting to offer Teoscar Hernandez, I think he's a good player, and I think that's probably a safer bet that he's going to be the type of productive player that he has been over the next 2 seasons. But once you get further along past that, it becomes a riskier bet. And you look at the team 3 years down the line, which I'm actually going to go through the Dodgers roster and talk about guys that are going to be on this team in 3 years. Let's go ahead and go through some of these guys, and let's just talk through some of the ages, and then also add in a Teoscar Hernandez, who will be entering his age 34 season. So we're talking about the 2027 Dodgers. Let's look at some of the players that will be on this roster at that case, assuming that they don't get traded and there's no injuries that happen. If my Fangraphs thing can load in just a second, we'll go ahead and go through these. All right, we'll have Shohei Ohtani. Obviously, he's going to be a part of that. He's going to be entering his age 33 season. Mookie Betts is going to be entering his age 34 season. Freddie Freeman, I think, will be on the last year of his deal, age 37 season. Will Smith will be entering his age 32 season. Max Muncy probably wouldn't be on this roster, but if he
32.
was, he would be entering his age 36, 37 season. You talk about other players. Tommy Edman will be on this team. He'll be entering his age 32 season. A lot of other players are on the roster, likely wouldn't be around, but then you also add Teoscar Hernandez entering his age 34 season, all paid at a premium. And you're just starting to see there's a need for some youth on this roster at some point. If they didn't bring in Michael Conforto, it'd be an easy yes, of course, add Teoscar Hernandez, and then you'd have a spot available for some youth. But with Michael Conforto also added and paid $17 million, not a cheap one that you can just throw out there and be able to afford and deal with the lumps and bruises, but a significant payday, which means he's going to get significant playing time. That's when I go back and forth about this and mean, what is this team gonna look like in several seasons, and how are they gonna get to that place to where they can have sustained success with some of these guys? Yes, I'm expecting Mookie Betts, Shohei Ohtani, and Freddie Freeman to still be productive, but I don't think they'll be as productive as they are right now. Or at least I wouldn't predict them to be. Just like Teoscar Hernandez,
but their ceiling will start at a higher point.
Yeah, it will start at a higher point, but it will start to go down. And eventually, some of those are just going to start to go down, and then you're going to see the overall production of this offense start to go down unless you're able to supplement that with other guys, which certainly the Dodgers could always sign some guys in free agency to help this out. Sure. But at some point, they're going to have to find some sort of way to get younger.
What happened to the Yankees, though, whenever their core that they developed, like Jeter and them, whenever they finally retired, what happened to the Yankees? Yes, I know they were able to build around Jeter and all those guys and Mariano Rivera and whoever it may be that was kind of that core. They were able to build around those guys with free agency, right? But then once those core guys like the Mookie Betts, the Freddie Freemans, once they no longer were around, then what happened to the Yankees, right? I mean, they haven't won a World Series since when?
Yeah, they haven't won a World Series since 2009.
So that free agency thing only works if you have the Mookie Betts and the Freddie Freemans to build around. You can't just do it from scratch and say we're going to build a roster every year from free agency.
Yes. Yeah, it is very difficult to be able to do that. And eventually, especially if if one of those players doesn't work out, okay, then you kind of just deal around it. If multiple players start not working out, then it starts to become a compounding issue, and especially when they're high dollar players. And then you are forced to have to play a lot of those players. And then you have some holes on your roster. And then those holes are blocking a lot of players that you could potentially bring up that could develop into solid players. And then it becomes a little bit of an issue. That's the difficulty with too many long-term contracts on this team, which I think is why they very well want to keep it shorter term with Teoscar. Yes, he would make this team better in 2025.
Michael Conforto, 1 year, perfect for them.
Yeah, that would
Teo
be
last year, 1 year, perfect for them.
Absolutely perfect. That's what they're looking for. So I wrestle back and forth with this. And I get it. Teoscar Hernandez, great Dodger. Great Dodger, and would make this team better. Long-term wise, what is in the best health of this organization? I go back and forth on that. And it could be depending on how you view some of these younger guys. If you have zero hope in any of these younger guys, then it's obviously go out and sign whoever, go back, bring Teoscar.
If you don't have any hope in Andy Pages and Dalton Rushing, then you are never, ever, ever, ever going to have a hope in any prospect that you bring up. Because those two guys have been elite hitters all the way through, in many different ways.
Which means that if you have no hope, and there's no hope for the system, eventually this dynasty will crumble. There is no other solution.
The Yankees. They haven't even been in the World Series since 2009. That's what History Man's saying.
Unless the Dodgers at some point invest in their youth, that will come back to bite them. It happens to
100%.
Every single team that establishes.
Now, is that your opinion, or are you looking at that from an underlying statistician perspective?
That is just looking at dynasties, knowing that there are ebbs and flows. Even if you look at the Yankees during the 20th century, they were always able to find players that came up and were that next generation. The Garrigs, the Mickey Mantles, all of these different guys were able to come up and be established stars.
Well, just go back to the Jeter generation. I mean, a lot of those guys were around for a while, right? I mean, Jorge Posada and guys like that. I mean, that you can kind of put faces to with those clubs.
Yes. So
Bernie Williams.
Yes. So the trick with the Dodgers is, how do we maximize the now while sustaining the dynasty? That is the trick. Maximizing the now would mean go out and get a whole bunch of veteran players, go out and get the best players that are available, that are going to be the best players in the 2025 season. Doesn't really matter what the long-term
why you do it through trade.
The long-term aspect is playing some of the youth. How do they balance both of them? That is how you build a sustained dynasty.
That's a great point, Austin. That is well done, Austin. That is very well done, because I'm going to say this, and I don't mean this as a criticism, because I don't have the answer either.
Yeah.
And nobody does. And you know that I think there's nobody better than the front office, and I trust them with everything.
Yes.
But I'm going to say this point blank. That is the one aspect of this that they have not figured out. And I think if you put a true serum in Andrew Freeman, Brandon Gomes, and even Billy Gasparino, my man that I talked to, my OSU boy that I talked to 2 or 3 weeks ago, trust me, I do not mean this as a criticism.
Yes.
You say, okay, well, yeah, you got to win now, but then you got to bring in prospects. If there actually was a way to do that, Austin, then the one club that could figure that out would be the Dodgers, right? Because there is nobody more creative and smarter, less ego, more willing to figure out the puzzle than the Dodgers, but they're the ones who have been able to figure it out the least. So that tells me there actually is no way to play for win now and then also play all of your prospects like you're saying. So it's an either or. And there is a payoff and a trade-off to that, to where there's going to be some periods where you have to rebuild at the end of this.
Yep, and that is the difficult team. The Dodgers have had a long, sustained run of success. And the very likely thing is this is going to continue for the next little bit. I want to make that as long of a sustained success while also maximizing the amount of championships that we get. And I think if you ask Andrew Freeman, he would tell you.
So which one would you rather have? More championships in the next 5 or 6 years, rebuilding session after that, or play your prospects now, win half the amount of championships, and still be decent after that run?
Of course you want more championships, or as many championships as you want.
That's a flavor.
But here's the thing, is doing and winning the most championships now during the next 4 or 5 years, you could also win the exact same amount of championships, just extended over a longer period of time.
You might not, too, though.
Long the rebuild is. Although you might not be able to do that as well. And if you talk about this discussion, if you talk about the balance between the win now and the sustained success, or needing to get younger or having some of these younger guys come up, There's nobody who knows this more than Andrew Friedman.
No doubt.
He would
doubt.
very well tell you, yes, this is something we know that we have to do at some point if we want to have sustained success. I think he very well is aware of that, while also recognizing that, hey, we got to maximize during the prime years of Mookie Betts and Shohei Ohtani, and while we still have Freddie Freeman.
I understand, but what I'm trying to tell you is, when you say win now, that means you put Teoscar Hernandez in left, you put Michael Conforto in center, you put Tommy Edman in center field, you put Ha-Seong Kim at short, you put Max Muncy at third, you put Mookie Betts at second base, you platoon Gavin Lux, you have Freddie Freeman at short, you have Will Smith at catcher. That means your pitching rotation is Shohei Ohtani, Tyler Glasnow, Yoshinobu Yamamoto, Blake Snell, Dustin May, Tony Gonsolin, and your bullpen is a whole bunch of, you probably go get Tanner Scott, which removes Edgardo Henriquez, and then that leaves you literally with Michael Grove or whoever it may be, Ben Kasparius, Landon, whoever the flavor of that week is as far as the up-down guy. That leaves you one freaking guy on your roster that is actually a system guy, at least recently. And so if you say win now, that squeezes all of these guys out. So I just haven't been able to see the equation of win now and prospects. I can't see where the Dodgers have found it either.
Unless you firmly believe that this team, as constructed now, is not only good enough, but probably favored to win the World Series. In which case, yes, you would also be going at win now, right now, while also trying to do it at the same time. The Dodgers team, with what they were last year, was not as strong and did not have a Blake Snell. It was not at full capacity, and they won a World Series. They can
So build a roster that does both. Build a roster right now with what the Dodgers have that does both. It gives them, that maximizes their opportunity to win a World Series this year, and then also maximizes the opportunities for the prospects. With the Dodgers, what the Dodgers have right now, build a roster that does both. Who would be on it?
A lot of that is keeping some of the things similar with what you have right now. If you were to bring in a Ha-Seong Kim, that would mean play Mookie Betts at shortstop, Gavin Lux at second base. If you do not add Teoscar Hernandez, which this is not an advocate necessarily for, do not add Teoscar Hernandez. That gives you opportunities to play Andy Pages every day. That gives you an opportunity to potentially bring up James Outman to see what he has. Gives you an opportunity
does it move your ball forward to a World Series championship? Does it make you a better contender for a world title?
If you go ahead and do that, I think obviously the lineup would be better if you had Teoscar Hernandez, but arguably the defense could be better in the World Series if you had Ha-Seong Kim in there. If you move Mookie Betts to second base or right field.
Yeah. So it's an interesting, it's a fascinating conversation.
This is why I think there's not always a rush to make a move. Or I don't think there's
the Dodgers are the best at it. Yeah.
I don't think there's necessarily a incorrect answer at this point to where the Dodgers can move going forward, because you could make the argument that, hey, sit on your hands and you don't necessarily have to get Teoscar Hernandez, and this offense still is going to put up a 120 OPS plus on the season, or put up a 115 OPS plus and have better pitching this upcoming season. They don't necessarily have to do that, and they get more experience. Or you can make the argument that Teoscar Hernandez makes this lineup better, which he was great with the Dodgers lineup and probably does make this Dodgers lineup better. Defense would probably take at least a little bit of a hit out there in the outfield. But there's arguments for both ways, which means the Dodgers can make their choice as far as what they think is best for this upcoming season. And it makes for fascinating conversations, and also means they don't have to rush into this decision immediately, and they can sit back during the Christmas break and during the new year and be able to sit and make these decisions and weigh all these options, which I know they have weighed through all of these different options.
Yeah, absolutely. So go to spring training and go to the backfields. And one of the guys you'll see there the most is Andrew Friedman, because he loves his prospects. There's a reason why he won't trade these guys. I mean, he just literally will not trade his I mean, we've seen it, right?
Yeah.
Dodgers just continue to go free agent. They continue to stockpile their prospects by not trading them, right? And so Andrew Friedman, I promise you, I say that to say, when he's on the backfield and he's watching Ronaldo Yeen, and he's looking at radar guns, and it's hitting 102, 103. Okay, he is liking what he's seeing. Okay,
Yeah.
When he hears Andy Paez, the ball come off his bat, and he's hitting 116 mile an hour singles, and the same with like a Damon Keith or any of those guys that have that type of exit velos. He loves what he's seeing. He loves those guys, and I promise you, in his mind is, how in the hell am I ever going to get these guys in the major leagues? Right? Because he knows he's going to go sign the next free agent because he has to, because we're the Dodgers. Right? I mean, if there's a free agent out there to be had, then you have to go get them if you're the GM of the Dodgers. So he's sitting there on the backfield at spring training going, I love these guys. These guys are so good. But honestly, I don't know how the hell they're ever going to be a starter at the major league level for us, because we're always going to have a veteran in front of them. I don't want to speak for him, but I would just almost guarantee you that goes through his mind while he's watching those guys in spring training.
100%. And the numbers bear that out as far as the plate appearances that they've given guys, especially over recent years, to rookie hitters, to younger players. They just don't give, or haven't given, a whole lot of these guys plate appearances, and they often keep these guys around quite a bit in their system because they like optionality.
Or bypassing for Kevin Biggio. That's what they got to stop doing.
Yes,
that's the plan.
that I 100% agree with.
Yeah.
I much rather see some of these guys get opportunities than bring in somebody that's going to be well below league average. Might as well see what you have in-house, and because if what you have in-house works out, then you have a major league player that has 6 years of club control attached to it. And even if it's just a 1 year flash in a pan, like let's say that James Outman never does anything again for the Dodgers. It was worth it because he had a 4-WAR season and significantly 100%. Helped the 2023 Dodgers in what they were able to do. Right. You can get values like that, and you can have a top 3 rookie of the year season. Not saying that I'm predicting that for any of the guys, but there is still some upside with that, and I think they can learn a lot. And also, it's life-changing for these guys. Absolutely life-changing to be called up.
I need you to do some research for my Sunday night show. I need you to do a comparison between Arenado and Lux and kind of give me some pointers where I can do my amateur analysis of it in terms of breaking down statistics for Sunday night. So, Blue Fan, we will break down Arenado and Lux on the Sunday night show. And then next time Austin comes back on, because he's absolutely the best at that. We have about 3 or 4 minutes, which isn't nearly enough time to cover this. Can you tell us what type of player Anthony Santander is?
Yes. So Anthony Santander, let me go ahead and pull up some of the numbers really quick, that what he was able to do. Important thing to know about Santander, he is a couple of years younger. He is entering his age 30 season.
Which is good. That's a plus.
That is a plus. One of the things that might be a little bit more of a negative to him is he does have the qualifying offer attached to him, which means the Dodgers would lose 1 or 2 draft picks, which I know is like, but also those do make a difference. And
it's the margins again.
It's one of those margin things that the organization does like to keep in mind. So past couple of seasons, he's been a full-time player, 650 plate appearances. His home run totals for the past 3 seasons, 33, 28, and 44. Last year was a career high in home runs. His best power season, he has typically been around a 215-ish ISO hitter, around a 30 home run hitter. That jumped up to 44 this past season. His WRC plus numbers for the past 3 seasons, 122, 119, and 129. He is not a great defender in the outfield. You look at his defensive metrics, they're all pretty significantly negative. Not very much a base stealer. Strikeout numbers are sitting around 20%, walks at about a 8.5% clip. So there's a lot of numbers just throwing it out to you right now.
Is a 12% differential between strikeout and walk. How does that compare league average? Do you know?
I don't know exactly how that compares necessarily to league average. I would say
I'd say it's probably
a little
average.
Bit above league average would
as far as above being good or above being bad.
Above being good or around league average.
So his ratio between striking out and walking is probably in the positive categories. What you're saying?
Yes. So there's that aspect. He has been a really solid offensive player, but I think also with Santander, I think there's a lot of very similar concerns defensively long term, like there is with a Teoscar Hernandez, just with what he's been able to produce with some of the defensive aspects with him. Just looking at his defensive numbers just on FanGraphs right now, just don't look necessarily the great 28th percentile on fielding in 2024, which is better than Teoscar. Expected WOBA, if you wanted to look at expected WOBA, was actually closer to around league average at 324. So he produced a lot of really good results. Some of the expected numbers are decent, but I don't know if it's going to be for the long-term contract, which he's likely to get a 4 to 5 year-ish deal, probably closer to $100 million for 4 years or for 5 years, whatever that works out. It's going to be a longer-term deal that you're going to be getting for an Anthony Santander. There's the qualifying offer that is also attached to him. Last year had a career high in home runs, so he's still a good, solid player, and he's closer to the peak. He's in the peak of his aging curve, so you might be some expectation that he's going to continue that through the upcoming season. But I think the qualifying offer might scare away the Dodgers at least a little bit, or they would prefer, if they don't get Teoscar.
It's a tiebreaker. It's a tiebreaker.
Yeah, it's a tiebreaker type of thing. With Teoscar Hernandez, obviously he does have the qualifying offer, but he's not going to cost the Dodgers a draft pick because the Dodgers gave him that qualifying offer. So I'm not anticipating him being a Dodger just because of the longer-term nature of the deal that he would likely acquire because of his age, and also because last year was a little bit more of a career high in power. Still a really solid player, I would say, Santander, but I think he's going to be a little bit more expensive, and I'd probably rely a little bit more on the youth as opposed to turning to an Anthony Santander.
Yeah. So we need Ha-Seong Kim versus Gavin Lux. We need that comparison. And then also another big consideration of this, if you remember the year before they got Ohtani, they weren't as aggressive. Remember that offseason? Dodgers fans were losing their minds. And then David Bassett came out and he said, hey, they're doing this because they're going to back up the Brinks truck next year for a Shohei Ohtani. Yeah. So a lot of what you do in an offseason one year is based on what you see yourselves doing the next year.
Absolutely.
So another great show that we might be able to get into next time we're on the air, which looks like it's probably going to be next Friday. Is that right, Austin?
I think that's right, yeah.
Yeah, so we're going to have a live show Sunday night. That'll be just me. Monday night, Steven Nelson's going to join. So make sure and tune in for the live show on Monday night as we talk to Steven Nelson. We will not have a show Christmas night, Wednesday. Friday, Austin and I will be back on the air. That show, what we're going to do is look at who the free agents, the big ones, will be for next year. And that will determine how aggressive the Dodgers are with like a Teo or whoever it might be, because they might not want to sign Teo for very long because they have somebody better coming down the road in the future. So that plays into it too,
if
right?
the Dodgers wanted to pursue Kyle Tucker, then that might mean that you don't want to clog up all your corner outfield spots.
Correct. All right, man, we got to get out of here. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun show,
always,
Casey.
always.
You guys are amazing. Can't thank you guys
doubt.
enough. You guys continue to surpass all my expectations of how amazing you guys are. So thank you very much. Very Merry Christmas to all of you guys. I won't be on until after Christmas, so enjoy some time with your families. Casey, very Merry Christmas to you as well. Thank you guys. 2024 has been an amazing year, especially for Dodgers baseball. And for here at Dodgers Daily, it's been a whole lot of fun being able to help go with you guys along this way. This offseason, I hate that we don't have baseball, but because of you guys, it makes it a little bit more enjoyable.
When I walk outside and I'm really cold, I don't hate it quite as much. I don't like baseball in cold weather. Hey, but what a great show. Thank you to everybody. Thank you for both of the wonderful super chats. Christopher Navarro, Ride Phil Fabian, you guys are absolute rock stars. And as always, it's a great day to be a Dodger.